Me and my boyfriend at the time were living in this semi-spacious studio apartment that belonged to his dad. It was on the third floor, and he recently got a permit to build a roof deck outside. You can walk onto it through the kitchen, and it's kind of leveled with the neighbor's bedroom window. We were aware that it must have felt a little invasive, so we tried to be considerate about how late we went out on it and regarding the noise and stuff. The tension started to grow between us, and the neighbor, when we were outside on a Saturday night, having a smoke, and we were just talking at a reasonable volume, when suddenly we hear a harrowing, "Will you both shut up and go the back inside?" I looked at my boyfriend and just burst out laughing. I looked around to see where it was coming from, and it was an old, sweaty man peering out of his window, gasping for air as he looked at us as if he was about to kill us. My then boyfriend said, "Mate, you can just ask us normally to keep the noise down." To which he started spewing countless obscenities and barked at us to go back inside. We didn't want his dad to get any complaints about us, so we just went back into the house. Several days later, we got a phone call from his dad saying the neighbor had called him, saying we were blasting loud music all weekend, screaming, and had loads of people over. He said he had to call the police. The thing is, even if he had called the police, we would have been none the wiser because we weren't even there. That Sunday morning, we were going out of town for a few days, so it made no sense. Over the course of a few weeks, every time we'd go out to water the plants on the deck or hang up some washing, he would use any excuse to shout abuse at us. It was traumatizing. "The pressure of your hose is too high. Your clothes are blocking my sunlight." And some mornings we would eat out on the deck and he would complain about the noise of our cutlery clinking on the plates. It was ridiculous. He would constantly tell us how the roof deck shouldn't even be there, so we gave him a copy of the approved permit. Anyway, one afternoon, we were kinda getting busy on the couch. Nothing too R-rated, but enough to maybe think of getting curtains that weren't as see-throughs as ours were. So, we're doing our thing, and out of nowhere, my boyfriend looked up and out the window, and his face just dropped. He got up and walked towards the window. "What the F?" I jumped out of my skin and asked him what's wrong, but before he could answer me, he leapt outside onto the deck and started banging on the neighbor's window. "What just happened?" I asked him. "He was filming us." I could see a blinking red light through his blinds. I was just like, no freaking way. I genuinely didn't believe it at the time and told him it was probably something else. Quite understandably, he wouldn't let it go. He would go out at night and try and look through his window for filming gear. You could only see so far back into his room, so there was no actual certainty that the neighbor had any of that stuff. And a few weeks later, he left his window open, so I guess he wasn't home. My boyfriend actually climbed halfway through the neighbor's window, standing on the garden table and just freaked out. At the end of the room, there was just this wall of videotapes with all these dates and names written on them, and loads of heavy-duty camera equipment at the end of his bed. We called the police and told them we were being stalked. Maybe it was just a coincidence at the time, but I think our suspicions were justified considering his character. He was just an all-out, horrible and creepy guy. And if he had footage of me half naked, I wasn't going to take that chance. The police informed us that we didn't have sufficient enough proof that he was filming us, but that they would question him. Without any real evidence, they weren't able to get a warrant to search his house for the tapes. Damn. So, After a while, we decided the only way to do this was to catch him in the act. It was pretty calm between us for a while. After we involved the police, he stopped bothering us. But I still wanted those tapes. One night, we just got back from dinner, and as we were about to go to bed, we hear a knock at the door. It's our other neighbor, who was super cool, asked us about this neighbor we were having issues with. The whole street knew we were on bad terms. Everyone usually kept to themselves, but they all hated this guy. We told her the whole story, and after talking to her for a while, she told us that she had also witnessed him filming us and offered to call the police. The police came around the next day and informed us that with our neighbor's testimony, they were able to acquire a warrant to search his apartment. A few days later, we watched the entire thing go down. 2 police officers showed up to his apartment, gave him a letter, and we just watched the whole thing. An hour or so later, he was arrested, and that was that. We didn't hear anything back from the cops for a while, until we got a call saying that he had been filming us for months. He had footage of us eating, of us napping on the couch, me getting changed, my boyfriend working out. It sent shivers down my spine. Not only was I absolutely furious, but really freaked out. We pressed charges and eventually he got a few months jail time. We eventually moved out, but I never found out what they did with the tapes. I think they're probably in an evidence locker now. Around 10-12 years ago, I lived in a little 2-bedroom house on a long road. It is a terraced house on a long strip of other terraced houses. Back in the day, all the attics were joined, and you could literally travel through them. Years later, they realized it was a bad idea. Fire spreading, burglars, etc. And so all the attics were bricked up so each house was secure. One night, I was soaking in the bath when I heard a noise above me. Thinking it may be an animal or something, I just ignored it. This went on for a few weeks, until I reached the point where I would only hear the noise when I was in the bath or shower or getting changed. I got a friend to check the attic. He just stuck his head inside and he told me he didn't see anything, which just confirmed my animal story. Not much happened after that for about a month or two, when one night I was alone. I was getting ready to take a shower and I was heading out with friends. I heard the same noise above, when all of a sudden, the dog started going crazy, barking and looking directly above me. Clearly, I was freaked out and decided to get ready at a friend's house. The next day, I was outside my house when the neighbor shouted at me. Now, my neighbor was creepy as hell. Small, stinky, strange looking with a hint of crazy in his eyes. He asked if I was okay. Being polite and trying to show him he doesn't really bother me, I said yes and went about my business. Just as I got to my door, he asked if I got to my friend's house okay. At first, without thinking, I said yes, thank you, smiled and waved goodbye. When I got inside my house, I realized that he would not know I was at a friend's house unless he heard me on the phone. And, as I was so creeped out the night previously, I was practically whispering to my friend. Anyway, I rang family members, told my dad, and they all came around. They turned the lights on in the bathroom, but kept all the other lights off. Opened the attic door, and you could see 2 lights shining right through the top of the attic. 2 tiny little holes. My bathroom ceiling was quite dark, so I never noticed them. My dad went in. He was gone quite a while, but when he returned, He was blazing angry. He ignored everyone and walked straight outside to the neighbor's house. We heard him shouting for the neighbor to open the door, but he was not home. I asked my cousin to go up to check it out. When he came back down, he told me that the wall separating the attics had been knocked through. Most of the brickwork was on my side, so it was knocked through from the other side. We called the police, but they told us that there was no proof he had done anything. The neighbor told the police he never used the attic and previous tenants may be to blame. Clearly he was to blame, the old dirty pervert. I don't think I have ever been so disturbed knowing that the dirty pervert had been watching me for all that time. I never stayed in that house again. This happened a few years back when I was around 14 years old. I had previously been told by my old best friend, Emily, that her neighbor had some entirely creepy tendencies. I slept over at her place a lot, but never encountered her creepy neighbor. This guy was married and had children, and his house was directly behind Emily's place. There was a wooden fence in her backyard that separated the neighbor's backyard and theirs. Emily had a deck and the stairs were a few feet off from the house, so you could fit a fairly small person in between the deck stairs and the house. You could see into the neighbor's backyard if you were standing on the deck, but not if you were on the grass. So one day, when we had a half day at school, I went back to Emily's place. I wasn't allowed over that day, but since we were inseparable, it didn't really matter, and we weren't expecting her mom to be home from work for a good few hours. Her mom ended up coming home early, so Emily and I scrambled to the backyard so her mom wouldn't see me, in order to avoid getting in trouble. We went outside and wedged ourselves in between the stairs and the house, so her mom wouldn't hear the fence gate open, as it made a lot of noise whenever it was opened. We waited for a couple of minutes until we started hearing shuffling in our neighbor's backyard. We could faintly see him through the cracks of the wood, and it looked like he was putting out his recycling or garbage. Instead, he was making his way onto the bin and poking his head over the fence to look into their windows. From the backyard, you could look into Emily's mom's window, the bathroom, and into parts of the kitchen. We saw him, but he didn't see us. We were shaking and holding on to each other for dear life as we watched her neighbor stand upright on the bin to get a better view into the windows. He kept shifting from bin to get better angles into what we assumed later on was Emily's mom's room, since she just got back from work and possibly into the bathroom. This went on for 5-10 minutes. I was trembling and trying not to move or make a noise while her creepy neighbor kept trying to look into the house. He eventually got back down and went into his house like nothing had happened, while Emily and I hopped our fence gate soon after. A few weeks later, we had another incident wherein Emily's sister took a shower late at night and went to her room. Her blinds were open, it was dark outside, and there was a tree that sat in their front yard, and it was snowing pretty heavily. She called us on her phone saying she saw someone in the trees and couldn't see them anymore. We told her to turn her light off while Emily and I did the same in our room. We peeked out the window but couldn't see anything. We went to her sister's room and asked what happened. She was convinced she saw someone in the tree who she believed was their neighbor, so Emily and I went out front to investigate. By that time, he was gone. But we did find fresh shoe prints in the snow that went from the neighbor's front yard to the tree, then right up to Emily's sister's window before it trailed off back to the neighbor's house. It truly was gross and creepy. My friend always wanted to report him, but her mom always shrugged it off and said he's not harming anyone, so to let it be. Emily got a boyfriend near the end of our friendship, and he also saw some of the creepy stuff that went on. He gave the guy a fright and threatened him if he ever tried doing creepy stuff like that again. From what I'm aware of, I don't think he peeps anymore. Or maybe he got even better at peeping. My fellow thrill seekers, here's a question for you. Have you ever had a creepy encounter that made your hair stand on end? Share your thoughts in the comments below.